Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Hello, and welcome to the Success in Africa podcast. My name is Dr. Modupe, and I am a scholar and practitioner of leadership and organizational development. Simply put, I study what makes people successful. I have been studying this for 3 decades with a particular focus on people in Africa. And in this podcast, I will share stories, lessons, and insights about people having success in Africa. Why this podcast? Because I am sick and tired of Africa being the poorest continent in the world. We are blessed with the greatest resource, young people. Africa will soon have the largest number of working age people in the world. And when these people achieve success, Africa's wealth will be unparalleled. Why? Because I don't know of too many Africans whose goal in life it is to die poor. You see, success in life is simply the achievement of a predetermined goal. For someone, success may be owning a house and a car. For someone else, success may be building a church that can boast of 1,000 members or 5,000. For another person, success may be creating a profitable business that employs 100 people. Whatever your definition of success is, this podcast has been created to help you to achieve it. So if you are serious about achieving success in Africa, I want you to subscribe to this podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts from, click the like button, send me your comments and your feedback. This podcast is brought to you courtesy of BCA Leadership, the largest leadership coaching company in Africa. If you have questions that you want me to answer, just log on to BCA Online. The link is on the screen and post your questions there. That is where I will respond to your questions. Once a week and 4 times a month, I will drop an episode that will give you actionable insights for you to follow so that you can also achieve success in Africa. And yes, there is a formula for success. And there are steps that the vast majority of people who have been successful in Africa follow to lead to their success. There are also actions and decisions that have a high probability of leading you to failure. And I will also talk about these so that you will know some of the missteps to avoid as you journey towards success. So every week, I will drop a nugget of wisdom. I am so excited to share these nuggets with you because I can already envision the transformation of Africa happening through you. Today, being the first episode, I am dropping 2 nuggets. These are, number 1, New Year's resolutions are a waste of time. Number 2, annual goals are not useful. Let me say them again. Number 1, New Year's resolutions are a waste of time. Number 2, annual goals are not useful. I can tell I just blew some people's minds there. Stay tuned. You see, successful people are not short-term thinkers. And only short-term thinkers waste their time doing things like 1 year's goals or writing New Year's resolutions. The people that I have studied that have achieved success have this in common. They have 10-year visions and they write them down. They have 10-year visions and they write them down. Why a 10-year vision and not a 1-year goal? Because we learn from research that human beings consistently overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, and we also underestimate what can be achieved in 10 years. Making a 1 year goal is a surefire way to achieve failure. Why? Because you are going to overestimate what you can achieve, then fail to achieve it, get discouraged, blame yourself or somebody else, and then step back into the same bad habits that you have always been engaged in. That is not how successful people behave. Making 1 year goals also assumes that people around you will move at the speed that you want to move. And here in Africa, our people have a wonderful way of punishing people who appear to be in a hurry. We use time as a weapon against people who are in a hurry. So don't do that. Don't make 1 year goals or New Year's resolutions. You will just set yourself up for disappointment and failure. Instead, think about where you want to be and what you want to have achieved in 10 years. Take your time doing this. The first time you engage in this, you are likely to get it wrong because you are going to project logically where you would be based on your current trajectory. Let me illustrate this with a personal story. The year was 2006, and I had been married for 8 years with a beautiful, loving wife and 3 little children. I was living in the United States, what many Africans in the diaspora would interpret as a good life. I had a good job that paid me a 6-figure income in dollars. We owned a house in Southern California. I had a green card, lived in a nice neighborhood, and it seemed like all was well. But the reality is, I was not happy because I felt unfulfilled. Why? I wanted to return to Africa. I was born in Sierra Leone, raised in Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Kenya, and even though I had attended college in the United States, I had returned to Sierra Leone for work for a short time before coming back to the USA. And I felt in the USA that I was just one cog in a large wheel and would be much more useful in Africa. Unfortunately for me, even though my wife is also from Africa, her entire family lived in the United States, and she had no intention of leaving the US. I had been hounding her since 2003 for us to return to Africa, and she did not want to hear about it. It got so bad that every time I talked about returning to Africa, we would get in an argument that would end up in tears or us not talking to each other. Around that time, I got introduced to a leadership coach who asked me what I wanted to do with my life and my career. The answer I gave him must not have been satisfying because he shrugged and then he asked me to write down my 10-year goals. I said, "What?" He said, "Yes, Modupe, write down where you want to be and what you want to have achieved by 2016. He encouraged me to take a few days to think about it and write it down. Okay, so I did. And the next time I met him, I showed him my 10-year goals. He took a look at them and said to me, "Modupe, is this really what you want? Or is this what you have settled for?" "What do you mean, coach?" I asked. My coach replied, "This looks like a logical progression of your current trend. You have told me a lot about yourself and what you are passionate about. I don't see much of that in these goals. Why don't you go try again? Search your heart, Modupe, and put down what you really want, even if you think it is impossible or unlikely to happen." So I did. It took me a few more tries to satisfy my coach. that I had not settled and that my 10-year vision reflected what I truly wanted, but I got it. My vision included the fact that by 2016, I wanted to be working and living in Africa, to create a business in Africa, employ people in Africa, and teach business to students in Africa. The problem was I was living in Southern California with a wife whom I loved, who had no intention of moving to Africa, and 3 small children that I adored. My coach then told me the next surprising thing. Modupe, now that you have written down your vision, put it away in a safe place. Don't bother looking at it for a while. I was confused. But coach, I thought you were going to help me figure out how to get there. My coach replied, we don't need to worry about that for now. You have done the most important thing that will get you there. Don't worry about how to get there. Okay, I confess that at that time, I thought my coach was full of hot air. But I did as I was told. I mean, it wasn't that hard to put it away because I definitely did not want my wife to see my 10-year vision. I was not ready for another fight. Here's the amazing thing, folks. By 2016, I had achieved all of these goals. We moved to Africa in 2010. I started 3 businesses between 2010 and 2014. 2 of them failed. And by 2015, I had taught 2 cohorts of MBA students in Sierra Leone. And by 2016, I was the founding dean of the Rwanda-based African Leadership University School of Business, leading Africa's first Pan-African MBA program that revolutionized MBA learning with hybrid learning at a time when the concept was still revolutionary. How did this happen? I can tell you I did not plan it step by step. The most important step was establishing the long-term vision and writing it down. I'm not the only person who has experienced this kind of transformation. I can tell you stories of others in Africa who have done the same and succeeded. So, ladies and gentlemen, this week, take some time and write down where you want to be and what you want to have achieved in 10 years. When you have written it, read it to yourself. If it does not scare you, then you have not done yourself justice. In other words, you have probably settled for what you think you can achieve. In that case, I encourage you, start again. Think about what you really, really want. Don't worry if it seems impossible. That is not your problem. Just write it down, whatever is in your heart. Be as specific as possible. I mean, pretend that God Himself appeared to you in a dream and told you He would give you your heart's desire, but it will come true in 10 years. When you read it to yourself, if it scares and excites you, then you have done it. Once you are done writing it, put it away in a safe place. Just congratulate yourself because you have taken the first major step to success in Africa. You have just become a visionary. Now, I know it sounds a little hard to believe right now, but simply by determining your long-term vision and writing it down, you will exponentially increase your chances of becoming successful in Africa. So please write down your vision. Next week, I will share with you another important key to success in Africa. Don't forget, folks, to subscribe to this podcast. Click the like button. Tell your friends about it. Together, we can transform our beloved continent.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.